welcome back to my study. How much of the future do you think God actually knows, and how much of the future do you think he controls and is in charge of? Why not have a real honest think about that? Press pause, have a think about it, and come back in a moment. I wonder what you said, because I think when we're being really honest with ourselves, we sometimes think that we hope that God has a good grasp of the future, or we hope that God is in charge of the things to come. And we're told so in the Bible, but that we find that hard to believe sometimes, don't we? I wonder if that's you. Well, I hope this morning, or whenever it is you're watching this, it is going to help you with that. Because in the first few verses of Isaiah chapter 29, God, through Isaiah, paints a picture of the future for Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem's got a nickname. We saw yesterday in church that Ephraim was the nickname for the northern kingdom. Well, Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom, has a nickname, Ariel. So here we go. Woe to you, Ariel, Ariel, the city where David settled. Add year to year, and let your cycle of festivals go on. Yet I will besiege Ariel. She will mourn and lament. She will be no more like she will be to me like an altar hearth. I'll encamp against you on all sides. I will encircle you with towers, and set up my siege works against you. Brought low, you will speak from the ground. Your speech will mumble out of the dust. Your voice will come ghost-like from the earth. Out of the dust, your speech will whisper. Well, God's speaking to Jerusalem and telling Jerusalem that there will be a siege against her, and it will be him who besieges her. But actually, if we were to read through to the end of our section of Isaiah, chapters 35 and 36 and 37, we would see that it was Assyria who besieged Jerusalem. But God is saying that he is going to do it. Now, what does that tell us about the future? It tells us, doesn't it, that God is in charge of the future. He's even in charge of his enemies, those who would rail against him and don't want to know him. God is in charge of even what they do. You see, Assyria was not a nation that worshipped God at all. Assyria was quite the opposite. Assyria was a nation that hated God. And yet, God is absolutely in charge of her. What does that mean? Well, it means that Jerusalem can be sure that even when the bad things are going to happen in the future, God is still in control. And he's the God who has set his love on his people. So let's pick up again in verse 5. But your many enemies will become like fine dust, the ruthless hordes like blown chaff. Suddenly, in an instant, the Lord Almighty will come with thunder and earthquake and great noise, with whirlwind and tempest, and flames of a devouring fire. Then the hordes of all the nations that fight against Ariel, that attack her and her fortress and besiege her, will be as it is with a dream, with a vision in the night. As when a hungry person dreams of eating but awakens hungry still. As when a thirsty person dreams of drinking but awakens faint and thirsty still. So will it be with the hordes of all the nations that fight against Mount Zion. See, because God is in charge, God will discipline his people, but will also rescue. He will remove Jerusalem's enemies from her. What does that say to us today? Well, I think it says that we can absolutely trust God. He knows the future. He's totally in charge of it. And, you know, he brought the siege against Jerusalem because Jerusalem needed to be disciplined so that she was following God more closely in the end. And she did. But she needed to be disciplined before she would do that. And then God showed that he is the one who moves nations. He's the one who rescues his people. He's the one who's absolutely in charge, and he can be trusted. And remember our theme verses for these 3 weeks, that God longs to be gracious to his people. So we can trust God with the future because he knows it and he works all things for the good of his people. Let me pray. Father, thank you that we can trust you. Thank you that you really are in charge of the future, that you are able to write down through Isaiah what was going to happen in the future for Jerusalem, and it did happen because you're in charge. And thank you that you love us and are gracious to us, and you use the events of the world for the benefit of your people, to bring us closer to you and to help us to know how much you love us. Amen. See you soon.